today I'm taking you with me on a fine morning in downtown Tokyo to shoot some film in the morning sun. Let's see what we can find.
Every day I walk the floor and think of you, and every night I pray the Lord will see me through. Every time I think I find a love that's true.
When in Japan, I'm based far out in the west of the city, but luckily my train line connects directly to Tokyo Station. That is where we're heading today, so getting there was very simple, albeit it still takes quite some time. The plan today was to shoot in the area of Tokyo that is very big and wide, everything around Tokyo Station and towards Ginza. It's quite different to the rest of Tokyo, so I wanted to shoot there for a change. It was a fine sunny morning and I took an early train, a little earlier than rush hour in order to avoid the crowds.
Hi. On my way to find a 7-Eleven, of course.
Once I arrived, I wanted to find a spot to begin, but on the way I wanted to get myself a little breakfast because I hadn't had anything yet, and so at least a coffee would be nice. And so for that, of course, I found myself in a 7-Eleven again, my typical pre-shoot stop. For a change, I actually didn't get a meronpan this time, but instead an onigiri, one of those rice balls, or triangles, I guess. I enjoyed some time up here, just snacking, fueling up for the shoot, and then it was time to begin. As I walked down the stairs and saw the two people coming from the left, I thought that my first photo might just be developing right in front of me. Here's the shot, and I like it. It's not special or outstanding, but you know, it's the first shot. A bit of a warm-up, I suppose, and for that, I think it's alright. I like the simplicity here with the rather open space with just a few subjects here and there, which keeps the photo in a way tidy. The light was still relatively low, with the sun throwing long shadows of the people who walked in its light, which made for a lot of potential around every corner. However, I was struggling a bit to actually find something that I was determined to shoot. But then, as I crossed the road here, I spotted that sliver of light, which I thought could make for an interesting photograph if I wait for someone to enter the frame. Here's the result, and I'm happy with this one. I love the lighting and how the composition worked out with the bush on the right edge and the plain white wall on the left. I also appreciate the sprinkles of colour created by the traffic cones, the postbox and the bicycle, which all share a similar colour that stands out in the otherwise rather desaturated environment. And finally, with just a little waiting, I was able to add a person to the scene, which I find just adds some life to the otherwise quiet scene. Then I wasn't sure where I wanted to go, so I ended up walking a bit of a circle and ended up at the train station again. Here, I did end up finding my next shot though. This one is okay. I like the scene with the pretty lighting and the mix of architecture and greens, however I'm missing a clear subject. It feels a little pointless or aimless to me.
Oh, I think that was a bad shot.
Then I decided to simply walk around the station to get to the other side and see what I find on the way. As I was passing some trees here, I thought the last tree that was in the sunlight could make for an interesting element within a composition here. I'm very happy with this one. The lighting is again just so beautiful with the long shadows. I also appreciate the wavy raised bed on the left to fill the left side of the frame. I think the tree works well as an element that fills that side of the frame while allowing that guy that is coming my way to be the main subject. I'm not sure how you perceive this, but to me, even though the tree is bigger in size and more present, the man in the suit remains to be the main subject simply because he's human and not a tree, and I feel like we humans tend to be more focused on our own species than a tree in a composition like this one. Then I continued alongside the building and kept my eyes open for new composition. It was here that this huge pillar caught my eyes, or more specifically the shade of the tree on it. This is the result, and I think this one turned out pretty cool. So I was initially drawn to the pretty shapes on the pillar created by the tree's shade. However, instead of shooting exclusively them, I decided to make them part of a wider composition, and I think that worked out quite well. I like how there are two people in frame, adding a sense of scale, which really shows how big the pillar is. Also, the fact that there is no sky visible here, seeing as the back is covered by more high-rise buildings, translates this intense feeling that Central Tokyo can have in the photograph. Central Tokyo can in some areas be huge and just beyond anything that I'd consider humanly, in the sense that we become more like tiny ants running around in a giant labyrinth. Anyway, I find the photo interesting, intense, and yet so calmingly pretty.
It'll cost you your life. It's damp and dark too. The river is wide, and it gets ever closer.
Here, I was fond of the opening ahead where the light comes in. The result is alright. I like the simplicity again, however I think I'd prefer to have all three subjects in the light, not just one. This currently feels just a bit off because my attention is drawn to the back where the light is, but there isn't really anything there.
They got us digging too close to the bank. Money and greed is a powerful thing. It can make a man blind.
Here I was again fond of the shade from the tree as it hit the tiled wall. This one turned out pretty cool, I think. The lighting looks great on the tiled wall, and I enjoy how there are two people in frame, one on each side of the wall. Next, I continued my walk and then spotted the two security officers standing in front of this entrance to some building. I was fond of their outfits, I just thought they looked really cool, and I imagined how cool would it be to take a proper street portrait of them, and so I went ahead and asked them.
すいません。お二人かっこいいなので写真撮っていいですか？ここ立ってる写真。あ、ダメですか？あ、はい、わかりました。すいません。すいません。
Unfortunately, the elder, who I presume has the say, told me that I can't get their portrait. It was interesting though. It seemed to me that it's not that they didn't want me to take the picture, more like they are not allowed to be distracted by me in this way or something, as if it was part of their contract. I'm not sure, but since then I haven't tried asking any officers like them again, because I assumed that I was an unnecessary distraction to them at work, so I don't know if I'll ever get a portrait of this kind. Then, before we continue, I want to take a moment to thank the continued sponsor of my channel, Squarespace. When anyone ever asks me how or where to make a website, I always just send them to Squarespace. It is, in my opinion, such a good service that combines easy and intuitive usage with creative freedom. Over the years, they've created this incredible product that allows me to make a website intuitively without any coding knowledge, while still giving me creative freedom to play around with designs and the character of the website. I myself have been using Squarespace for 5 years now, and it's been great and seriously constantly getting better. I use my website to showcase my projects that are either completed or currently still in progress. However, you can actually use Squarespace for so much more than what I do. You can make a simple blog, but you can even make an entire online shop, site for bookings if you're a freelancer, pretty much anything. You can start off with one of the many templates and then customize the layout and design. Alternatively, you can also use their AI tool, which lets you create a website by basically describing it. But whatever you do, you get so much freedom to just change and customize everything so easily thanks to their drag and drop editing system called Fluid Engine. You can head to squarespace.com for a 14-day free trial, and then when you're ready to launch your website, you can go to squarespace.com/TeoCrawford to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Thank you so much to Squarespace for continuously supporting the channel and my work here. I really appreciate it. I walked on and eventually came to the opposite side of the station, which I believe is the more well-known side that tourists pass by on the way to the Emperor's Palace. Here, I thought I could maybe shoot an interesting composition of the people sitting around the tree with the wide open space of Tokyo Station behind. Unfortunately, I think this one turned out rather boring. It's not bad, it's okay, but also not really that interesting, I find. Then I decided to try a composition that would simply include a wide range of buildings and people to simply picture the wide space of this side of Tokyo Station. I think the result is okay. I like the lighting and the composition, but I don't really feel the shot yet, if you know what I mean. There's nothing wrong with it, in fact it's quite nice, but also I'm not sure whether I particularly like it. I then shot an alternative because I spotted someone running across the space, but that didn't really make it much better, I find. Similar to the first two, I think the next two around this area are all okay, but nothing outstanding. Maybe I'll like them once some time passes, but for now they're not all too interesting, I find. Next I wanted to walk towards an area here that is close by, which I believe is the financial district of Tokyo, or at least it's the big corporate district with gigantic buildings. It's not the typical area where I'd usually shoot, but I wanted to give it a try and change things up a bit. Here I thought it could be cool to play with the lines of the wall and the pillar and wait for someone to enter my frame. Here's the result, and I think this turned out alright. It's a little bit underexposed with the shadows looking quite rough, but still acceptable. I think the play with the lines worked out nicely. The photo is this streamline from top to bottom, and luckily someone came in from the right to add a bit of life to the scene. Maybe, but I'm not sure. I should have waited for the person to be right in the centre between the pillar and the wall at the back, which might give off a more intentional impression. Then, right around the corner, I was quite fond of the escalators here, mainly because of the bright light of them that made them stand out. The result is actually pretty cool, I find. I love the lines of light that I was referring to, and I enjoy the lively feel with people going up and down and people passing by in the back. Something that intrigued me a couple weeks earlier, which in part is what inspired this shoot, was the stillness of the commuters in Tokyo. I don't know how this is in the rest of Japan, but in Austria I feel like the commute is more chaotic and noisy, whereas here in Tokyo it's impressively civilized and quiet, almost enjoyable in a way. And so as I was crossing this road, I tried to get a shot from the POV of a commuter basically. I think this second one turned out quite alright. Something I like is the lighting and how all the people are swarming into that direction, like it's the light at the end of the tunnel or something. I think this one might be my favourite because it's closer to the light and I like how much closer the people on the left are to the camera. Here, I was intrigued by the giant building again, as the people walking in looked so tiny. Also, I was fond of the potted flowers that went up the stairs. It sort of looked like they were also heading to the building. Then here, as I came around the corner, I spotted some interesting lighting on the building ahead, and fortunately there was someone packing their bag there, which I thought could be the addition that I needed to the photograph. This is the outcome, and it's okay, but really not anything particularly good, I find. The lighting is what drew me to the shot, but now looking at it, I think the composition is just not really there. It's all a bit random. As I was crossing the road here, I spotted a beautiful bunch of flowers, which I thought could work really nicely as a part of the composition. Here's the result, and I really like this. The composition worked out very nicely, I find. Half of the frame is simply covered in flowers, and then in the upper half there are two pillars, in between which there is an extra subject, someone walking through the frame, who I tried to get center framed in the composition. The only thing I wish for, thinking that it would strongly improve the photograph, is more dynamic range. As you can see, the shot is exposed for the flowers, but even those are close to blowing out due to overexposure. And yet, that space at the back is so dark that in the photo it's a little too dark and contrasty, but still, I like this shot. Here I got an impulsive shot of the structure on the left as this guy was heading inside of it. This is the result, and due to the impulsiveness of the shot, it is a bit underexposed, but still fine. Though I'm not sure how much I really like it in the first place, it's not really doing it for me. Next, I was fond of these trees and how the people around here interacted with the place. This is what I got. It's again mildly underexposed, but still okay. I do like how there is that one person sitting within the bunch of trees, but with the lack of lighting and such, I'm not sure what to think of this photo. It's a bit boring, I find. With that, I felt like I had enough of the dense high-rise building district and walked around the Emperor's Palace for a while, but there too, I didn't really find much that I thought would be worth shooting. And so I was slowly heading to the train station close by, from where I could catch the train that I needed. I decided to leave the GoPro on though, in case that I find something else to shoot. Here I was fond of the trees, but the photo again sadly turned out quite aimless looking, just not particularly interesting. This too, it's okay, there's nothing wrong with it. I like the space and how the people interact with it, but it's all in the shade, which looks a bit boring, I find. At this point, I felt like I had maxed out my creativity for the morning, seeing as I wasn't feeling great about the shots I was getting. On this street that was already quite close to the station, I spotted a cute scene. I just liked the look of the building on the other side, and so I decided to try one more shot and wait for someone to pass through the scene. This is the result, and I'm happy with it. Luckily, I could finish this session on a good note. I like the bright and summery feel of this shot, and I love all the details of the white buildings. I suppose I could have waited just a second or two for a better position of the person passing through, but this is also okay. And that concludes this morning of photography. It was really fun to be out and about in the area of Tokyo that I usually just pass by but never really spend some more time in. I hope you had some fun joining me on this excursion. Before saying goodbye, I would like to say thank you to the lovely people supporting me and my work on Patreon. Thank you so much to each one of you. If you're interested in Lightroom presets, tutorials, and stuff like that, you can check out my page via the link in the description. Also, I have a print shop, by the way, in case that is of interest to you, also in the description. With that said, I hope to see you again soon. Until then, goodbye.